Linda's hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her granite countertop, watching her daughter-in-law Megan sprawl across the living room sofa like she owned the place. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of dirty dishes abandoned in the sink, wet towels crumpled on the bathroom floor, and that infernal yapping from the untrained Pomeranian that had turned Linda's peaceful retirement into a circus. "This is my house, not your kennel," Linda's voice cracked through the afternoon silence, sharp and final. Megan's head snapped up from her phone, her perfectly manicured eyebrows arching in mock surprise. The Pomeranian princess continued its assault on Linda's antique Persian rug, scratching and circling like it was preparing to relieve itself for the 4th time that day. "Excuse me," Megan's tone dripped with the entitled disbelief Linda had come to despise. Linda walked deliberately to the front door and pulled it open, the September breeze rushing in like liberation itself. She pointed one steady finger toward the street. "Out, now." The story of how they'd arrived at this moment began 6 months earlier, when Linda's son Marcus had called with what he'd described as wonderful news. Megan needed a place to stay while their new house was being renovated. Just a few weeks, he'd promised. Linda, widowed for 2 years and still adjusting to the echoing silence of her empty nest, had agreed. What harm could it do? That first evening, Megan had arrived with 7 suitcases, a hostile Pomeranian, and an attitude that suggested Linda should be grateful for the company. The few weeks had stretched into months, with the renovation timeline mysteriously extending every time Linda asked about it. "You can't just throw me out," Megan said, finally rising from the couch, her silk pajamas rustling. It was 2 in the afternoon. "Marcus won't stand for it." "Marcus," Linda said, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest, "has been making excuses for you since the day you met. But this is my home. I worked 30 years as a nurse, paid off this mortgage, and I will not spend my retirement tiptoeing around your mess and your spoiled dog." Princess chose that moment to squat, and Linda watched in horror as a puddle formed on her rug. "That's it," Linda's voice went quiet, which somehow made it more terrifying. "Pack your things, you have 2 hours. Megan laughed, actually laughed. "You're being ridiculous, I'm family." "Family respects boundaries," Linda shot back. "Family doesn't treat someone's home like a hotel. Family doesn't let their dog destroy property and shrug it off. Family contributes, helps, shows gratitude." "I do contribute, I'm here, aren't I, keeping you company in this big empty house." The words hit Linda like a slap. There it was. The assumption that Linda, at 63, alone and widowed, must be desperate for any companionship, even toxic company. The presumption that loneliness made her pathetic, made her grateful for someone who treated her like hired help. "My house isn't empty," Linda said softly. "It's peaceful, or it was." She thought of her late husband, Robert, and how they'd chosen every piece of furniture together, how they'd hosted family dinners where people laughed and cleaned up after themselves, where respect flowed naturally. She thought of her morning routine, coffee on the porch, reading her mystery novels, tending her garden, all disrupted by Megan's chaos. "You want me to leave over a little dog pee?" Megan's voice rose. "Wait until Marcus hears about this. You're trying to sabotage our marriage." "Your marriage is sabotaging itself," Linda replied. "Marcus works 12-hour days while you sleep until noon. He comes home exhausted to a wife who hasn't cooked a meal or cleaned a dish in weeks. Don't blame me for the problems you're creating." Megan's face flushed red. "You have no idea what I'm dealing with, the stress of the renovation, trying to get pregnant." "Then deal with it in your own space," Linda interrupted. "I've been more than accommodating. I've bitten my tongue while you commandeered my guest room and turned it into your personal closet. I've said nothing while you rearranged my kitchen and threw out my food because it wasn't organic enough. I've tolerated that dog destroying my belongings and keeping me awake at night. Princess has anxiety. Then get her training, or medication, or take responsibility for the animal you chose to own." Linda's composure cracked. "I am not your mother, Megan. I am not your maid. I am not your emotional support system while you figure out your life. I'm a grown woman who deserves peace in her own home." The silence that followed was deafening. Princess whimpered, sensing the tension. Megan's eyes actually welled with tears, but Linda had learned the hard way that Megan's tears were tools, weapons deployed when other tactics failed. 2 hours, Linda repeated. "I'm going to my book club. When I return, I expect you and your belongings gone." "Where am I supposed to go?" "Your mother's, a hotel, an Airbnb, the house being renovated. I genuinely don't care." Linda grabbed her purse from the hall table. You're a grown woman with a credit card and a husband, figure it out. Marcus will never forgive you for this. Linda paused at the door, her hand on the knob. This was the threat she'd been dreading, the nuclear option. Her son, her only child, choosing his wife over his mother. But as she stood there, she realized something crucial. She'd survive it. She'd survived her husband's death, survived raising Marcus alone after the divorce from his father, survived every challenge life had thrown at her. If Marcus can't understand why I need boundaries in my own home, Linda said quietly, then I've failed him as a mother. But I won't fail myself by becoming a doormat to keep the peace. She walked out, leaving the door open behind her, a symbolic gesture Megan couldn't miss. At book club, Linda's hands still shook as she sipped chamomile tea. Her friend Patricia noticed immediately. You finally did it, Patricia said knowingly. They'd discussed the Megan situation for months. I did, Linda felt tears threatening. God, Patricia, what if I've ruined everything? You've saved yourself, Patricia said firmly. Sometimes loving your children means teaching them that enabling isn't love. Marcus needs to see that his wife's behavior isn't acceptable. When Linda returned home 3 hours later, her heart hammered. The house was quiet. Megan's car was gone. The living room looked somehow larger, lighter. The guest room door stood open, revealing empty closets and a hastily made bed. On the kitchen counter sat a note in Megan's looping handwriting. I hope you're happy. Marcus will call you. Linda crumpled the note and tossed it in the trash. She walked through her home, her sanctuary, reclaiming each room. She opened windows to air out Megan's heavy perfume. She started a load of laundry. Washing the couch cushions, Princess had made her bed. She ordered new throw pillows online to replace the destroyed ones. That evening, Marcus called. Linda let it go to voicemail twice before finally answering. Mom, what the hell? Watch your tone, Linda said calmly. I'm still your mother. Megan's devastated. She says you threw her out over nothing. Is that what she told you? Linda felt eerily calm. Did she mention the destroyed rug, the constant mess, the complete lack of respect for my space and my boundaries? She said you were being unreasonable. Marcus, Linda's voice cut through his words. I love you, I will always love you. But I will not sacrifice my peace, my home and my sanity to house your wife indefinitely. She needed to leave. This isn't negotiable. She's my wife. And this is my house. The two things aren't mutually exclusive unless you make them that way. Silence stretched between them. Linda waited, refusing to fill it with apologies or explanations. The renovation's almost done, Marcus finally said, his voice smaller. 2 more weeks. Then Megan can stay with her mother, or you can take time off work and stay with her at the house, or you can get a temporary rental. Those are your options. She is not coming back here. Mom, I'm not sorry, Marcus, I love you both, but I won't be disrespected in my own home. Not by anyone. When you're ready to have a real conversation about boundaries and mutual respect, I'm here. Until then, I need space. She hung up, her heart racing but her conscience clear. 3 weeks later, Marcus appeared at her door alone. They sat on the porch with coffee and he apologized, really apologized, for enabling Megan's behavior, for taking advantage of Linda's generosity, for losing sight of basic respect. Megan never apologized, but she did send a thank you note when Linda sent a housewarming gift to their renovated home. It was progress, Linda supposed. As she locked her door that night, alone in her peaceful, quiet house, Linda smiled. She'd learned the hardest lesson. Sometimes love means saying no, and home means protecting your sanctuary even from family. Especially from family.